All right, everybody, we are back with the WCA EU Pro Qualifier. And we're, of course, going into the losers match now. We have our first map, and it is going to be Garden of Terror, and the teams are ready. It is, of course, ROCCAT versus Kinguin. So, guys, let's jump right into it. Game number 1, the draft, and let's see what the teams have up their sleeves for us today. A first ban on the Jaina here already, and, of course, on this map in particular, it would be quite a surprise to not see a Zeratul ban.
Yeah, Zeratul just incredible on every map, but this one, there's so much mobility you can get, and the map is so big, you have to split up at some point, and that gives Zeratul perfect opportunities to pick off individual members of whichever team he is against.
Yeah, and at this point, they actually took their sweet time, but they ban, of course, Zeratul out. It's one of the biggest maps. It's a strong map, and let's see what exactly is going to happen here in regards to the first pick. Wow, an Illidan first pick right off the bat. A bit unexpected to see Illidan this early in the draft, but they are just saying, okay, we want to have the Illidan. And what do you think this has a consequence regarding the Abathur?
Well, the only people who usually really pick Illidan this quickly are Team Liquid. And usually the reactions are fairly similar to this with the Abathur. He's incredible on this map as is, just for the split XP. And the Uther to deny that away. But Liquid, they usually just go, whatever, bring in a Lost Vikings, bring in whoever they want, bring in the Rhaegar, and they just roll with whatever they're given. They just want the Illidan because it's great.
Yeah, Kinguin, therefore, in this case, they would have, of course, loved to go for the Abathur. They picked the Illidan first, and they wanted to get some support for him, but in this case, they actually bullied ROCCAT a little bit to pick the Abathur or just let it go. So right from the start, ROCCAT already knew what they were up against. And Kinguin, in this case, is at least adding a Rhaegar, who, of course, is also a great support for a melee assassin like Illidan, thanks to the ancestral healing that you have, and also, of course, the cleanse that you need then later on level 7. But the next pick is the Anubarak. And Anubarak this weekend has just well, actually, it's not the weekend. The last few days has been a very popular hero once again. It's just such a great frontliner. Having that regeneration mask that gives you a lot of sustain, especially in the late game, and we're of course having those double stuns too. So Anubarak, it is for them once again, and that's a very good jump here. You can of course also initiate with the Tyrael potentially and together with an Illidan, but in this case they went for the Anubarak instead.
Yeah, Anubarak, I think if you did look up all the stats for this tournament so far, Anubarak's probably been the most popular tank, followed closely by maybe Muradin. I think those two are very close at the front.
Totally agree. We've seen a ton of Anubarak being played, and I mean for good reason. It is a very strong hero indeed. Now, of course, we're going to start with the next ban here. It is the second ban for ROCCAT in this case, and it's actually not really easy to determine what you're going to ban out here. Of course, the one thing that is still missing for Kinguin is range damage. We could potentially see them, I think, even going into a Tyrael as well and playing a very, very hard engage comp with the Illidan, and then again, also, of course, Anubarak and Tyrael. But traditionally, you would expect more range damage here, so that might be exactly what ROCCAT is going to ban out.
Yeah, quite possibly, and it's usually what we see when a Illidan has been picked and there's the potential for that Tyrael to go with it, just because the engagement is too strong. So, like you said, could be a very comfortable ban out for ROCCAT here. But no, they are going to ban out the follow-up damage. After that, they'll take their risk on the engage and ban out the follow-up burst that you get after it in the form of the Kael'thas Kinguin, with a very quick Zagara ban to ban out that focus you can get from those double hunter killers onto the Illidan.
That is one of the things that's really important to get rid of on Zagara, but then again, it's also vision. And of course, Maw can be really nice if you want a section off the healer from the rest of the team and then deal with Illidan as an example. There's still a couple of things that you can do with this. In this case now, though, we have the packs coming in on the side of ROCCAT, and they still need their tank. They still need some damage. As a tank, we could then again see the Johanna, which is actually one of the tanks that ROCCAT really favors. Johanna and I think Tyrael are the two that we see the most being played by ROCCAT these days. And as a range damage dealer, we have already bans on Zagara, bans on Kael'thas, bans on Jaina, while we see Johanna as expected coming into play. So a hero that we could see here right now is, for example, on such a big map, a Falstad, a Vala, very good heroes that they could start to complement this draft with.
Yeah, and I very much like the idea of the Falstad here. Just the fact that, like you said, very large maps, so split pushing XP is a huge advantage. And there's the fact that with the Johanna, you get that incredible combination of the Condemn into Hinterland Blast that so many teams love.
Exactly. So for now, they have the opportunity to use one of these two heroes, but we also have an Azebo still, which is a very good hero if you really want to push out some of the damage. Keep, on the other hand, this Abathur in mind. We could even see them head into a melee hero themselves then later on, but Abathur already with Johanna, very, very strong. It's a very scary thing to face in those fights, especially, of course, when Abathur goes for the support build that we oftentimes see with so much transference then later on and with the increased attack speed. For now, they want to have a bit more sustainable damage, and this is, of course, where Vala excels.
Yeah, the Valor, a lot of sustained damage if you're going for the multi-shot build, and if Kinguin are really going to go hard onto the Valor, or so for example they picked up the Tyrael right here, then Valor could in fact go for that punching arrow build with the hungering arrow talent to give her all that juicy lifesteal to allow her to stay in a much more safe position.
Exactly, and I mean, for now we're having on the other side of Kinguin, the double pick. The last two picks for them, and this is where things are really starting to get interesting, because first of all, they need really some damage, and Vala would also complement their own lineup very well, but of course was just picked away a second ago. Sylvanas is something that you could take here, so you have a bit of like pressure, you have a bit of damage, you have a bit of pushing power. The Zebo is still on the board, we have that Fawcett that we've been talking about earlier, and if they only want to take one range damage dealer, there's still the option for them to jump into a tier as well and have a very, very strong jumper comp. The problem with this is, though, who are you going to attack? Abathur doesn't really have a body on the board. Then we have an Uther who only has to take care of 3 heroes. So maybe not the best choice to go into Tyrael for the super hard engage, since there's very few heroes that you can engage upon.
Yeah, like all they'd want to engage on, like you said earlier, would have been the Valor, who can be cleansed, divine shielded, and then just bodyguarded by the Johanna here. But for now, Kinguin, they did need range damage of their own, so for picking to start off with, picking up the Nazibo, and they do have an option of some more range damage in their composition here, a second warrior, or in some cases even a second support, but I would expect a second range damage is probably most likely for them. They don't need that Tyrael burst because they don't have enough follow-up. Like Nazibo is damage over time, as opposed to a burst follow-up to a double engage.
The utility hero, that of course works very well for them too. Going into that utility shield, you have a bit more sustain for Illidan. At the same time, you also have more area of effect damage, and in those fights, the Archon is great. So a very solid lineup that we are seeing for Kinguin in this case. Actually, like if you think about the old school lineup that you oftentimes saw with Illidan, the only hero that you would really swap out here would be maybe the Nazeebo with the Vala, and then you have one of these really strong Illidan compositions of old. But for now, the last pick coming into play for ROCCAT. And ROCCAT, they have a solid tank at the front line. They have so far only, of course, Vala. And we could still see a second damage dealer for them. I actually kind of expect it at this point.
A melee one is definitely in the open for them. With the whole, they have a much better setup for a melee assassin than Kinguin do with the Abathur Illidan. So if they wanted to, Butcher, Kerrigan, even Thrall, who we saw yesterday come in and win the only game he played, is definitely a viable choice for them here. And we'll have to see if that's to go for. Or even Sonya, just completely slipped my mind because best warrior NA.
Yeah, best warrior NA for sure. But yeah, there's definitely the opportunity for them to go into one of the melee assassins if they wanted to. They could just also, and there it is. It is the Butcher. More fresh meat. We already saw him in the last game. That's where we, of course, had a great showing for the Butcher played by Navi. But in this case, it is ROCCAT playing the melee assassin, as we already said earlier. They have a good setup for it. They have the Uther here, and they, of course, can provide the Divine Shield again. And on top of that, also, there is the Abathur. And Abathur can be a menace if he works together with the Butcher. So this is going to be a pretty cool game. And keep in mind that we are actually on Garden of Terror here. So having that presence with the Butcher who can easily just solo a few of those camps, Abathur can help out throughout the map. And Abathur doesn't even have to go for a full support build. There is still this hybrid build that especially ADRD is playing a lot, the former Gamers 2 player, where you just simply go into the Locust talents on level 1, 13, and 16, and with the rest of your talents, you at least give the additional attack speed to the melee assassin, and of course also try to supply some more damage with the Needle Spine on level 7. You could go into a Mule. It's a very, very cool build if you want to do both. Push on a big map and play that advantage, and also support a melee assassin. So Abathur has a lot of choices here, and it's a very solid lineup that they have. The map is currently being loaded, or at least it should be.
No, we're not, because you have yet to join the lobby.
Okay, so that's something that I should have definitely done already. My apologies for that. I was already wondering why this was taking some time. So in this case, of course, slipped my mind. But yeah, I'm in lobby now as well, so we can actually start the party here. The players are ready. And yeah, I am definitely ready for this one now too. And we can already...
we just see someone hovering over Aelioric there, the newest hero, who is not allowed here due to the fact that he was just released.
Yeah.
But nice to see him just hovering there. Instead, it's going to be the Rhaegar Nebza, apparently the one who's been practicing it. So Maybe in a couple days.
Nipster has been actually playing a lot of Rega, and the thing is, he had like a couple of games just recently where his team wasn't too happy with him since he missed a lot of his ancestral healings, which is of course the most important spell on Rega here. But then after that, he really he said himself that he had a couple of bad days there, but now he is back to business, and we already saw in the matches earlier that he hit those extremely well. They still lost the game though, and in the case of Kinguin, I mean, going up against the new Fnatic lineup, I definitely don't envy them this position, because Fnatic is really just trying to make a showing for themselves and just show everybody that this new lineup that they have is extremely strong. They try to take on Team Liquid. That's the purpose behind the new setup, and so far they've made a very good showing for them. But they have to go up against Na'Vi later on. But for now, we're of course looking at this best-of-3 series here in the losers match, where ROCCAT and Kinguin are starting now into map number 1 of the best-of-3 series. So let's see who is going to advance here. There's another chance. If you win this one, you can go to the consolation match, to the consolation final, where you have an opportunity to qualify for Games Mode. But the loser of this best-of-3 series is going to fall out of the tournament immediately. So everything is on the line now for both of the teams. Our first map, as already said earlier, is going to be Garden of Terror, currently loading up. A very big map, one of the biggest maps that we actually have in the pool, disregarding maybe Battlefield of Eternity. But Garden of Terror has been played a lot. No Zeratul this time. Still the best Zeratul map that is out there for exactly that reason, but also Abathur is shining here. It's interesting to see that we have no Lost Viking in this case, because oftentimes the hero is being used to just utilize the map. And yeah, it looks like we might even have a bit of a problem there. Nope.
No,
okay.
We're going. Someone just PC wasn't waking up properly.
Not feeding the hamster. Probably.
Yeah, not feeding the hamster. It was just like hold on, guys. Wake up.
But yeah, we finally arrived in the maps. Let's jump into it. Game number 1 on Garden of Terror between ROCCAT and Kinguin. And immediately a pause on the side of Snow in this case. So maybe having a bit of a problem.
Yeah, we did see a bit of a slow load there. So they're just pausing, trying to sort that out. We do only have 2 talents picked in the instant that we did spawn, and then that pause came in. So not too much to talk about, just Knight takes spawn and the victuals on the Butcher and the Johanna.
Knight takes spawn, actually one of those talents that is extremely powerful on Johanna. The reason is quite simple. First of all, of course, it combos very well with an Azmodan if you're trying to take a creep wave down so that Azmodan can finish off the hits with his globe. In this case, of course, it doesn't really play a role since we don't have an Azmodan combination for either of these teams. But where Knight takes spawn really shines is, of course, when you're trying to have the lane sustain at the beginning. You can push those waves back, can get also a very good position in your own lane, and especially then later on in the game, if maybe even go for something like Burning Rage on level 13, you get a lot of siege damage out on the map, and that makes Johanna a great tank at the front line, not only very disruptive in those team fights, but also very good when it comes down to the pushing power.
She's also one of those heroes who is very good in the late game if you are that little bit behind. Due to the fact you get those huge waves pushing into your base in some situations, Johanna just rolls in, pulls everything in, like I said, with the Burning Rage, just wipes out minion waves super quickly, and if your opponents are grabbing mercenaries, it also stuns them for an extended period of time, and that could be the difference between having a keep and having catapults in your base.
Yeah. And talking about the mercenary camps, it's actually pretty cool when you go into battle momentum on Johanna on level 7 and not into conviction, which allows you to just close the distance between yourself and the opponent faster, which of course is amazing for Condemn. But if you go into battle momentum instead, you suddenly are in a position where with something like Burning Rage, you can easily take camps alone. You just move into those knights and you hit that Condemn a couple of times. Exactly. And then you can take down that camp quite easily. So sometimes you find yourself in a position where that's exactly what you have to do while the rest of your team is occupied otherwise. But Johanna, in this case, just very versatile, I want to say. Maybe not the hero that does the most hero damage, but really someone who just adds up over time, is very solid and a constant menace.
Yeah, she's a constant menace, and she is very similar to how ETC was back in the day, the playmaker. ETC was the hero who would go in, get his stuns off, maybe knock someone back for a kill, or at level 10s, go in and just try and get as many people in that mosh pit as possible. Johanna is now taken a similar role with the Blessed Shield, trying to get as many people as possible, or even just one person. That one skill shot stun to hold them still and get that kill. But she also combos very well with her 2 teammates here in the form of Valor, with either the potential Strafe or Rain of Vengeance to catch as many as possible, and with the Butcher and his Furnace Blast.
Yeah, Butcher in particular is, of course, a hero that is, well, It's kind of interesting to really see how the Butcher works, because one of the things that especially the pro players have been discussing quite a lot is where the Butcher really shines. And first of all, that is in a certain setup where you can protect him, and that's why we have Uther with the Divine Shield here. And also, if you go up against a team that doesn't have a lot of stun that they can coordinate against you. In this case, we're only having the Nubarak against the Butcher, and one of the reasons why he has a bit of a mixed reputation is that the Butcher really shines against weaker opponents. If there's a skill difference between teams and the better teams runs a Butcher, it's very easy for them to get him to snowball a little bit.
Yeah, Butcher is someone who you pick on quick match if you want to be a monster. Yeah. And you or you pick in duo queue, where it's like, well, I'm going to play Butcher, my friend's going to be Tyrande or Uther, and we're just going or Abathur, and we're just going to roll in and hope that they're not as organized as we are, and I can just smack them down, because if there's not that cleanse there, if there's not that heal there, which if you see in a pro situation, if you just ran Butcher on his own without the Uther, without the Tyrande, without that huge protection, then he's just going to get annihilated every single time.
Exactly. That's the big problem that you have with the Butcher in one of those pro games, that you have so much coordination between the teams that they know exactly what to watch out for. That Butcher starts to charge in with a Ruthless Onslaught, and everybody knows exactly what's up. There's the cleanse on the target, immediately the stuns fly in, and that Butcher, who might have seemed like really that menace at the beginning, just rushes in and tries to take you down, is suddenly just obliterated within seconds. So both teams have to really make sure that they have the perfect lineup for it. And in this case, the Butcher is actually a very good choice. They have the Uther, they have the Abathur. That's a lot of support that you have there. And that's why I'm very curious to see what kind of build we're going to see there for Abathur, because the map actually caters to both builds with this composition. You could either go for a full support build, or you could just simply say, hey, this is a massive map. I can really start to soak experience at one side of the map, push maybe the other side out, even go into a monstrosity here and make sure that my Locust and the Locust Brood then on level 16 get a bit of pressure onto the lanes while my team is fighting, for example, for the objectives.
That is very likely indeed, but we do not yet see what the Abathur has picked. I do like the idea of just going with that full support build, and then with the monstrosity as well, like you said, just staying on the Butcher for the entirety of the team fight. In the meantime, that monstrosity, maybe not with Locusts, don't need the Locust build for that. Like you said, it's a great map for it, but it's all down to how you play it. So you can easily just sit on top of the Butcher, keep him healthy, do some extra damage, and let your monstrosity just push down the bot lane, push down the top lane, and just do whatever it wants. Yeah,
in this case, Abathur, if he goes for the ultimate evolution, has actually a lot of targets. Butcher with a double Uther there, that's already annoying as hell. I mean, it's only the heals that you get in. Of course, you don't have an access to the Divine Shield anymore. Those were good times, by the way. Uther, Abathur back in the days, the copy on Abathur had actually access to the heroic ability. And that was a lot of fun.
Imagine just run with Falstads
all
the time.
Double Hinterland Blast. Imagine all of a sudden having two Odins against you.
Oh yeah, that was
double
glorious.
Odin Bloodlust with an Archon there as well.
The Blood Brothers.
Wow.
Such a good comp. Yeah. It was absolutely hilarious. And also, source of one of the greatest backdoors I have ever seen of one Gazo with Robo-Goblin, two Odins, and they just split pushed with Bloodlust and were able to end a game and to kill a core in about 4 seconds. Yeah,
that was actually quite sad when Blizzard suddenly said, okay, this might be a bit too strong. Not that I disagree with them on that count,
it's definitely a viable decision.
It was really fun. Those were also the days when Abathur was basically banned out in every single game. You didn't even have to think about that. As soon as the game started, okay, Abathur's gone.
It was Abathur and then whoever else they didn't want to play against, and then it was about to see who could pick Tychus or Falstad first.
Yeah, exactly. Tychus was, of course, very different back then as well, when you had that extra life bar. There were a couple of really cool things that we saw in the alpha and in the beta. There were also a couple of absolutely ridiculous bugs that we had there. I was mentioning one of them already earlier today, when we have actually a web blast by Nubarak, mod by a Zagara, and suddenly the player would be deleted from the game. When you came out of that web blast, suddenly your character was just gone, and you couldn't do anything anymore.
You can't die. There's nothing you could do.
You couldn't move. You could center the camera on the character, but it just wasn't there anymore. You couldn't move.
And because you were still technically via the game's standards in a Maw or in a web blast, you couldn't even Hearthstone. So you were just, that game was over for you.
Exactly.
And in some cases, I saw one person get kicked for inactivity.
You could just simply restart the client, join back into the game, and you find yourself in the same position. So basically, there were a couple of teams around, not really pro teams, but like people that tried to abuse that. And every single fight, you would lose a hero. At some point,
they would just start to get more and more outnumbered.
There's one guy left that's like, hey guys, don't leave me alone here.
It's like a horror movie, just watching them get picked off one by one as they make their way through to the cabin in the woods.
If you are asking yourself why exactly we're still telling you all of these things from back in the days, we're currently still a little bit nostalgic indeed. We're still waiting for the player to come back. So apparently there was a bit of a problem with one of the computers and they had to restart the computer. And currently we've been told that that process has already been completed. Currently the game is being started. Thankfully, we are only, well, 2 seconds in, I think. So we should be back.
Minus 30 seconds. Yeah. So we've literally loaded the game and we've had enough time for 2 players to pick talents, but it starts at 30 seconds.
So that reconnect system is not going to take us too long. But yeah, we're going to go into this. In the meantime, we've been talking a bit about the draft here. We've been talking a bit about the talents that the players could choose and also, of course, the current builds. So I hope that makes up for it, at least to a certain extent. The one thing that we can really see on Rhaegar here is most likely going to be another Shadow Wolf talent taken on level 4. Nepse has been playing a ton of Rhaegar lately. And normally what we are seeing here is the mana reduction for his chain heal on level 1, going into the Shadow Wolves, therefore on level 4. Because if you go for that reduction, you don't really need Feral Heart.
Yeah, Feral Heart's lovely because it gives you not only the mana regen, but that health regen, so you can get out of a fight. But Shadow Wolf, that cloak can really save your life and make a massive difference in a team fight. If having your Rhaegar alive and suddenly he turns around, comes back in after being focused down and gets that last second ancestral heal off on your Illidan, and suddenly it's turnaround time. You can keep going.
Exactly. And one of the things, of course, that China speaks a bit against taking the Shadow Wolf is if you don't go for that mana reduction on level 1. Because then you suddenly face the problem that in the later stages of the game, you are going to run out of mana way too fast, especially if you're tempted to go into the 13 and 16 healing talents, which the 16 healing talent reduces the cooldown if you hit 3 targets. So if you go into something else on level 1, for example, you decide that the healing totem is worth it after all, or you want to go into the Colossal Totem, then it still makes a lot of sense to go into Feral Heart on level 4 to have that extra sustain. Level 7, of course, that's where we usually see cleanse. Like, I don't think that any player here on a support these days goes for something else than cleanse unless he really has to.
It used to be pretty much only Farsight for Rhaegars, but they are valuing that one cleanse over the vision you get from the Farsight. Farsight's still lovely. We don't even see clairvoyances anymore a lot of the time. Just no extra vision stuff. It's all down to just Tassadar and Zagara if you want vision heroes.
Yeah, and at this point, as far as we can tell, we have the player back in the game, apologizing already for the delay. So Nepse in this case was committing that crime, but we are jumping into the game right now. So once again, we just started the match here. We are on Garden of Terror, and it is the first game between ROCCAT and Kinguin. And, well, we could finally start into the game because the teams are ready, and we are starting to play here. And yeah, very well done from our guys here over in the match, getting Nepse back into business. Nurok and Anubarak to the left side for Team Kinguin. We have Gerd Amherd on Tassadar, Snow on Illidan, Invidum on Ezebo, Nepse on Rhaegar into the right side of the map. Well, we're going to introduce those a little bit later because the match is already about to start here. So Team ROCCAT with Chris on the Butcher, rocking the skin, the master skin on him. And down to the bottom lane, we're having on Sport Billy the support, and we're having Shadowmar here on Vala.
Yep, and for those of you who don't know, Shadowmare did start off his career as a support as well, but swapping it out when he did join Team ROCCAT.
Yeah, up here at the top lane, Hazob's the one who's playing Abathur, and Abathur so far not picking his first talent, which is oftentimes very telling. If you see the Locust talent here, you kind of know what's going to happen at level 13 and level 16, but he didn't really decide it if he wants to go for a push, a hybrid build, or if he just simply wants to go full support for the Butcher. And the most important talent for Butcher is, of course, the Adrenal Overload at level 4, so that you get the extra attack speed, the 25%.
Yep, such a lovely talent. You want it on Illidan, you want it on any of your melees. Johanna, doing a good job of defending against Illidan and the Rhaegar for now, but she's not able to hold back the lane, and those towers are just going to drop very low in ammo very quickly.
Yeah, down to the bot lane. In the meantime, we have Invidum and Gerd Amherd trying to go for Spot Billy. Shadowmar is moving in on Vala, though. And Tassadar will have to move back here. So far, not using Dimensional Shift. The seeds are growing, and now that we have Knight, both of the teams aiming for the seed counts.
Shadowmare pushing back Invidium there, moving in Soccer, clearing that top wave as quick as he can. Chris moving down through the bot lane, coming in behind Nura, going to start doing some damage. He did drop the hamstring to get the slow. and threw down his Butcher's Brand. Just get a bit of health regen. NOROC didn't even get a single auto attack off in return.
Yeah, and Chris didn't even bother with the Ruthless Onslaught. He already knows that this is going to be an attempt in vain. Sport Billy on the other hand, stunned, and the kill against Uther. The Butcher moving into the mid lane now immediately. And also revealing that Abathur's secret we have on level 1 pressurized glance taken, so it's not going to be one of those hybrid or push builds that we are seeing on Abathur. He will go full support and make sure that Chris is going to have as much support during these fights as possible.
Yeah, level 4 hit a bit earlier for the blue team here at the side of Kinguin, and they have already picked up its hands, but it's already been hit by ROCCAT as well. So both teams, neither one too far ahead in XP here.
On level 1, we of course have Victuals again. This is one of the talents that we saw picked very early in the game, as Thatcher already talked about. But now we have on level 4 the Hamstring talent taken, the extra range with the Flail Axe. And it is Vala who goes for that full arrow build that we've been talking about earlier. Here comes the Ruthless Onslaught on the other hand, moving in with a quick condemn. Abathur is there. The stun, but Johanna, sorry, in this case, it's Illidan moving away as Johanna is not able to get that kill secured.
Yeah, and the Abathur on top of the Johanna there instead of on top of the Butcher. So the Adrenal Overload not really helping out the Butcher, instead helping out Johanna, who has much lower attack damage.
Yeah, in this case, it probably wouldn't really have mattered, but for later, this is extremely important that he picks his target for the Symbiote well, since, as you already said, that extra attack damage is much more worth if you're going to use the Butcher for it than anybody else here. On level 4 now, the Shadow Wolf as expected for Rega. And the Butcher is now doing what we've been talking about earlier. He's going just like solo for the camps, starting to take down the Siege Giant camp. The Butcher's brand is working with that. And this is actually one of those things that we also have to mention when we're talking about the Butcher. His cooldowns are super, super high. 20 seconds on the Ruthless Onslaught and 14 seconds on the Butcher's brand. You don't want to spam them out. You really want to use them wisely.
Yeah, so you will a lot of times see Butchers dancing at the back of team fights, waiting for their opportunity to go in. On the odd occasion, throwing out a Hamstring just to try and harass. Like I said, their two main abilities there for when they're in a team fight or to get into a team fight. Huge cooldowns, so if you waste them, you have no way out. And if you get that Butcher's brand on someone who runs or dances away, or in Illidan's case, sort of jumps away, then suddenly you have no sustain at all.
Nipser and Snow up at the top, pushing the lane in again. The Anubarak, by the way, going for the full Beetle build. We're having Psy Fusion and now Static Charge taken for Tacita, who's currently busy in the mid lane, defending against this Siege Giant camp that we've seen. And there's a Mule on Abathur, going for the level 7 talent here. Could have gone into Needlespine on level 7, but decided to go for the more sustainable talents so they can heal out some of the structures later on in the game.
Yep, just a bit more of a passive build for their Valor. Going with the full Puncturing Arrow build, just getting that defensive talent tree on. It makes a lot of sense when Illidan is going to be jumping onto your face because you are the most delicious target.
Exactly. Having this against Illidan or against any kind of melee assassin is always nice so that you are in a position where you can actually fight back. Gerdamherd down to the bot lane is already taking down the mines. Abathur knows exactly what they are doing here. Yeah, and this is going to be a pretty good position. Look at Abathur here in the mid lane, trying, of course, to use as much of those mines as he can, the toxic nest, to make sure that he gets vision on what happens, and also keeps them close to the next night when the objectives spawn again. We have the seeds that the mines are going to annoy the opponent a bit.
Yep, Illidan just doing what the classic Illidan strategy of soloing all the mercenary camps in the world that you can get there. Invidium is actually going to come here and help him with this bruiser camp because his wave is not yet pushed up. He's not missing anything. This just lets Illidan get done faster and get to a new point on the map to help out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have so far the 10's not really there. The top lane is being pushed. It's a cool camp that we're seeing. They're just pushing this in together with Chris and Soccer. They have a very nice lane there and using that pressure established by the bruiser camp to take down one tower. They're going to go for the second one. They're trying to get some experience here, and they do, but NOROC is moving in. It's hitting the Butcher. 1 stun, 2 stuns. Johanna trying to just focus maybe a few of those targets on the condemn, helping Chris out, but not enough, even with Abathur jumping in. Butcher goes down, and that is, of course, the second kill that we're seeing now for Kinguin in this game.
And what we saw there was, once again, like we were talking about earlier, the issue with Butcher. He put his Butcher's brand onto Rhaegar, who immediately Ghost Wolfed and ran away. So that there was no lifesteal for the Butcher, so he just got taken down.
Exactly. With a lifesteal, you normally want to take that on one of the tanks. That's the best thing that you can do so that you can heal yourself up again. Later on, we could even see that extra speed on the Butcher's brand. We actually had that in the last game when Navi was running the hero for exactly that reason, so that you have that self-sustain in these fights. Sport Billy is taking a few more seats now, but so far, Kinguin has done a much better job. Here comes a good strafe, taking down the Zebo. The counter kill on the side of ROCCAT, and they are moving in to claim now seats in the second night here in Garden of Terror.
Yep, everyone from Kinguin is down here. Nurok going very aggressive, looking to try to steal seeds, looking to maybe take control. In comes the Butcher, going very deep onto the backline, trying to get Illidan. Illidan, though, turning it in, trying to do the damage. There is the Furnace Blast and the Divine Shield used on the Butcher, keeping him alive, and somehow no one died there.
The plan got rooted, and they're moving in for the seats, claiming a lot of them. Job well done by Kinguin, but ROCCAT, they have a plan now ready as well. Head is moving in on his plan, trying to go in. A lot of the heroic abilities are already in cooldown here. And at the same time now, Gat moving in once again, trying to drop the 40 up at the top lane. Abathur is still soaking some split push experience. He even has the monstrosity here, but we're seeing ROCCAT now with their own plan on the way.
Yeah, and ROCCAT are going to be pushing down this mid lane, trying to get as much damage as possible, while the terror of Kinguin is still in that bot lane. Seed still available at this top Shambler, and we are seeing ROCCAT begin to move into it, but they're a bit split up. Uther nowhere near. Valor still clearing in the bot lane, but just the presence of this terror in the form of Chris is enough to force Kinguin to back up a bit.
And of course they create space with this. This might allow them to get even more of the seeds. They're moving in already. Nuruk and Vidum Snow are all there, and they're trying to contest this. In the mid lane we had Gat still attacking the 40. Wants to drop this. There's experience it still for Kinguin. They're moving in again. It's all about the seeds at this point. Gat is moving in once again, but he only has another second left on the Terror. Is already out of it. Gat with a storm, trying to zone out the opponent. We have also Gary the Gargantuan starting to make his way into this team fight as Johanna is going for another contest, but is in trouble. Abathur jumping and trying to help out, but Johanna about to die. Zocke is down.
Chris is looking very low in that turret. He is in full retreat, but is able to get away. Invidium dodging the route, and we see Kinguin take full control, get the Terror. Neither team had enough seeds to get the Terror after ROCCAT did steal just enough to make sure that there was no way Kinguin could, and ROCCAT never had enough to begin with.
But definitely a very good moment here for Kinguin. I mean, in this case, they're able to win not only the fight, but also at that level 13 talent to the repertoire. We see them now with Healing Surge on Nepse. Rega going for exactly the build that we've been talking about earlier on. And we have Burning Rage now even taken on the side of Anubarak. Still interesting to see that we didn't see him go straight for the Regeneration Master. But on a map this big, it's pretty difficult to actually get all of those healing globes. Whereas on maps like Blackheart's Bay, Tomb of the Spider Queen, you can easily get those from 2 lanes.
This is very true. And a very important talent here for both teams. We're seeing the Tassadar and the Uther both going for those Shrink Rays, and they will be dropped straight onto those melee assassins. Speaking of melee assassins, we are seeing Illidan come in. He's going to be wanting to go onto Soccer here. He does have the Abathur on his head. Shadowbear is there the other side. He gets web blasted though, so he's not going to be able to help Chris with the slow. Thanks to his hamstring, trying to deal with those Soccer with the help of that Abathur will back away.
Abathur backing away, and also Sport Billy, who got webbed early on in the fight. They can't just simply move back here. It's a slight lead in experience that we are seeing for Kinguin, but it's not a massive advantage that they have. And at this point, both of the teams have their level 13 ability, which is once again Crave Flesh on the Butcher. He will get his additional speed when he goes into the Butcher's brand using this one. And the movement speed just helps you to keep close to a target and get the additional lifesteal.
Yeah, but he wants to be able to get full sustain in those fights. And to do that, he needs to actually have a target to be able to stick to. Snow doesn't have issues with this due to the fact that he's not actually an assassin, he is a dancer.
Yeah, well, a professional one at that. I mean, jumping in and taking down the entire camp here solo once again without even dropping too many hit points. So the Bruiser camp is going to make its way over to the bot lane to push this out. And at the top, we have still a Siege Giant camp. Chris is there in Invidium. He wants to defend, but at the same time, he doesn't want to get close enough to the Butcher for him to be a threat.
He needs to be within a running range and ice block range of his own keep. So if the Butcher dives in, he will get that slow in the form of movement speed and slow in the form of attack speed. So Nightspell will be able to turn onto it. Chris and Soccer starting on this Bruiser camp, but Nurok, Nebza, and Invidium all going to raid in here, try and take control, and Snow is here to deal with this as well. This camp will go over to Kinguin.
Kinguin is going to take this one too, and they establish a very solid position on the map once again. Very good spot here for them to be in. They are only slightly ahead in experience, but it's all about them just like getting all of these camps and pushing the pressure on the lanes. The Mule was doing a lot of work already in this game for ROCCAT, but in this case now the fort finally taken out by Kinguin, so job well done.
That is the first fort of the game going over to them. However, there are currently 3 members of ROCCAT in the top lane getting ready to push down as well to see if they can take the fort, and it looks like they will. They have a minion wave, and Tassadar, nearest member of Kinguin, isn't even starting to make his way out there. Tassadar currently just sort of sitting in a bush in the mid lane, just so he has vision. There's the Oracle. But it's a push for a push here. Tassadar's going to take down this monstrosity here. No, there is the Abathur on it. In comes Shadowmare as well, and that will push Gernher back.
Yeah, the monstrosity is once again on the move back, but the knight is falling, and that means it's all about the seeds once again. And at the bot lane, we are seeing, of course, Kinguin get into position. They have the level 16 talent, but soon enough, we will see this for their opponents as well. Top lane, still trying to zone the big Terra, and they're rotating up to the top. They want to fight, but Nazeebo is a bit late to the party.
Yeah, it's level 16 to level 16. Nazeebo, however, can throw spiders over this wall. Looks like that's what he may want to do, but he can see that everyone is backing up from ROCCAT here. Anubrak getting rooted by the Terra. Gets Ancestral healing strafe from the Valor, doing a lot of damage to Illidan, who's managing to bed for Zorvus. But in comes the Furnace Blast. That is a lot of damage, but Butcher does get taken down. Illidan is in there trying to deal with Johanna, but Johanna has the Abathur on her, and she's not going down without a fight. Nurok being forced to back up. Ice Block being used by the Nazeebo to make sure he wasn't caught in the Terra route, but that was still a 1-for-0 in favor of Kinguin, who are looking very good here.
And that puts Kinguin now into a 5 versus 4 situation with the Terra still on the map. But Kinguin has to move back here. They're really low. They are fighting once again, just waiting. Nepsis going for the heals. They try to steal the seeds. Johanna's up at the front line. Shadowmar is nearly getting rooted there by the Terra, but not quite. Zocke and Nubarak moves in, tries to steal the seed away, gets a lot of them. Zocke going down as a result. And now once again, the superior situation in the game for Team Kinguin. And they could just move down and take the second Terra. The monstrosity is currently pushing the bot lane, but they want another kill. It doesn't look like they're going to get it though.
They want a kill, and they have a Terra with them, so they want to get some pushing done. Maybe want to grab these towers to set up for a bit later game, a keep kill. However, like you said, this monstrosity continued to push, and a Terra is now available for ROCCAT that they will be using to defend. Hasselhobbs being a scumbag in the top lane here, just soaking XP and pushing up with those single locusts. Not the 4 locust builds. Chris using his Terra to defend right now. You never want to be using your Terra to defend, but in this case, it's working out very well for him.
Yeah, right now we have still the Mule once more doing work, and Gerd is moving to the bottom lane and trying to take a few of the towers down. He knows that Mule is already on cooldown, so he can take at least the wall. He moves in and crushes the other tower, and that's exactly what he does. But Abathur is still pushing the top lane. He doesn't have any Locust talent, which is of course going to make this a bit more difficult. Snow was trying to go for the seeds here, and of course that has been...
Oh, the monstrosity.
Yeah, that didn't escape the notice of his opponent's team. They're trying to move in to take Snow down, but the rest of the team is rotating over as well. There
is the heal, and that will allow Snow to get out. The monstrosity, though, still in this backline. It's stacked quite nicely, but it's finally going to get taken down. And that means it's going to be the symbiote back on top of the Butcher or the Johanna. Looks like it once again going to be the Johanna. Johanna just acting as the bus for this Abathur to do everything he can. Down goes the Shambler. Chris picking up most of the seeds from that. Web Blast is used. Nurok getting pulled into the Dev. Soccer getting off very low though. There's the Metamorphosis. Divine Shield used on the Johanna. She will stay alive, and they're turning around now. Snow is in this backline. Strafe. Most of the shots hitting Snow as well. Condemned. They're trying to get him up. The Furnace Blast does not land. Snow dashing away from that very nicely. And they're able to get away without any casualties. However, now we're seeing Kinguin in retreat. There's the Ruthless Onslaught to a minion. So we allow Butcher to get out there. Nurok pushing forward, but he doesn't have much matter. Oh, Sport Billy, that is the wrong place to be. Nebs are coming around. There's the Illidan jump. And Sport Billy staying alive for quite a while here, thanks to this Abathur, but there's only so much he can do against all 5 members.
At the end, he still dies. The top lane still being pushed, though, and that is starting to become a big problem for Kinguin, since ROCCAT is just taking down the entire wall. The second tower is already falling. Abathur is doing quite some work here, but he will have to get out of there because of this is going to draw a reaction from the opponent's team. But so far,
hasn't drawn it yet.
Not impressed.
Yeah, he's still sitting here. He's still pushing, and his Locust and the minion wave are actually on this keep. Finally, Nazeebo comes up to Courage, and Hasselhobbs tunnels down to that bot lane, so his Locust can help deal with that Siege Giant camp.
And as already mentioned earlier, if you go into something like Night Takes Pawn plus Burning Rage, you can easily take down these camps, even without the battle momentum. We have Conviction taken for Soccer, but he goes for the Bruiser camp and takes that quite easily. At this point, it's still very even when it comes to experience. Abathur is making this possible. If you look at the experience soak, Abathur is currently looking at 16,000, which is quite impressive comparing it to the rest of the experience soaked for his team. But they are starting to fall even a bit more behind. It's not only about the experience here, it's also about the structures, and they are the ones who are a bit closer, losing a keep since they already lost the wall at the mid lane, and in the bot lane there's a very similar picture as the Mule is trying to heal up the tower and the gate.
Yeah, somehow the keep did take damage before the second tower was destroyed. They were able to creep it. We did see Kinguin able to creep in and do some damage to that somehow, which is pretty nice for them. Kinguin beginning to move as a group towards that mid lane. Looks like they may want to try and go for that keep. Right now, Nubrak is going in. No, they're going to go to that top fort while Nubrak distracts. And that will give them their third fort of the game in the top lane. There's very little they can do to defend that.
We have now Storm Shield taken for Raygun level 20, a Hardened Shield for Nubarak. The Twilight Archon, of course, the obvious choice for Tacita, is going to be a beast in those fights now. And we're seeing Illidan with their demonic form as we have finally an escape next to the ice block for Nazeebo heading into his Bolt of the Storm on level 20.
Yep, so he has something to block the initial engage and then something to back out afterwards. Butcher having to be back to base here as he wants to defend. His top lane does not want to lose a keep yet if he can help it. Joining up, Invidium is there, but like we talked about, he does have all those actives. Level 20 has now been hit for ROCCAT, so they can afford to play a little more aggressive. We have the Indestructible, the Hive Mind coming in from the Abathur. Uther not even waiting to avoid the animation, just going straight into Redemption here. He does a bit of damage to Tastar here. Double bolts from the Butcher and the Valor. Soccer going in there onto the Nazeebo, but it's all just harass engagements. It's not going to be a full commitment coming out from ROCCAT yet.
They're moving back for now, Kinguin that is, and they are trying to rotate through the maps. They also go, of course, for the objectives now that night is falling once more. And we're seeing them just rush in, take the seats and go away. But again, Condemn is moving in. Here comes the quick dimension. A lot of misses thanks to the shield there. We have Web Blast already used, and at the same time, the Butcher is moving in with his Furnace. And Sokka is starting to get low, and it's Johanna already blocking the Indestructible shield. They're going for Snow once again, but Illidan is still surviving using Metamorphosis. And at the same time, the Ancestral Link bringing him back to full health. Fort Pile is taken out in the backline. They're trying to chase Sokka again. His Indestructible was already proc. Invido with the spiders and the spiders.
Shield.
No, the shield.
He needs something to heal off.
He has it. There's nothing.
He needs to run to the minion wave.
He's trying to get away. And once again, Sokka, Illidan moving in, trying to seal his fate, jumping in.
So much
goodbye, Johanna.
Yeah,
well
that
done.
was not enough to save him. We did also see Butcher go down. He got out on like 0 health, but was finally chased down and killed off. Sportbilly and Shadowmare trying to defend this, but there's the engagement from a Nubrak. Shadowmare able to vault backwards, protect himself, but Sportbilly not so lucky. He gets taken down. Now Illidan's going to engage onto Shadowmare as he is alone. No one's defending except for Abathur. Abathur's doing a very good job, though, of keeping Shadowmare alive, and he is able to get out. And now we're going to see Kinguin start on this core. Shadowmare trying to do what he can. Shadowmare and the Abathur. There's the Web Blast onto Shadowmare, so they're just going to focus down this core while he is in that.
They're going for the core right now, and they have him already nearly down. There is, at this point, 60% left. 3 heroes down. The Mule is not going to do a thing there.
Oh, and the
Snow
Terror
does the damage. Get Amherd moves in, and with this, they're going to seal ROCCAT's fate in game number 1. The GG's called as Kinguin takes game number 1 in the best of 3 series here, claiming Garden of Terror. Really well done by Kinguin, and of course that momentum that they gained at the end was impressive. Level 20 versus level 20, the objectives spawn on the map, and 3 heroes start to move over to gather seeds, and ROCCAT pounces on them. But Kinguin, they take the fight, and they say, all right, we can win this. And we saw some incredible saves on Illidan with a really good cleanse, with a good ancestral healing there too. And it just like Illidan did so much work in these fights, and the Butcher was a bit negated.
Yeah, the Butcher didn't really do much at all, although he is actually the only one who didn't do anything. He wasn't the source of their only kill for the entire game on the Nazeebo. But I would like to give a shout out to that Nazeebo, because in that final fight, we did see Johanna get an incredible engagement onto the team of King with a nice best shield onto 3 very important members in the backline, and we did see the Butcher was able to follow that one up as well as Uther. However, Uther wasn't able to. It was just the Butcher who came in. However, Uther and Vala were stuck by a zombie wall, and Vala wasn't willing to use her bolt, and they still had a couple members of Kinguin to deal with there, so they couldn't just push and dive through. So we had a complete separation thanks to that zombie wall.
Really well played here from the guys, but in the end, of course, the Nazeebo player in this case able to also then push Johanna back again with those spiders, which is actually very close. Illidan might have been the one who delivered the last hit, but at the same time, Nazeebo already about to take Johanna out there. They go for the core, they take it out, and therefore we have 1-0 the best of 3 series. We're going to head into a short break, and once that the teams are set up for game number 2, we're going to head into the second draft. It's not going to be too long, so guys, stay tuned, and in just a bit, we're going to be back with the second game in this best of 3 series.